So you want to play Ares, but the only problem is you don't know how. Well, fret not, because I'm going to teach you how to build, play, and level Ares all in this video, so let's go ahead and get into it. Let's start this off with Ares' passive Blessed Presence. Each completed aura item that Ares owns grants him an additional 30 magical power, which sounds really good, but the way Ares' power scales is not the greatest. So it's a decent passive. It's not the best passive, but it's not terrible at the same time. But let's go ahead and move on to the rest of his kit. Let's talk about Ares 1, which is a chain that he shoots. He can shoot up to 3 different times. It slows them by 15% and gives you a speed boost by 15% that does stack up to 3 times, which is kind of nutty. You could just go around chaining people, be faster, slow them, and cripple them. They can't run away. If you do chain them, they cannot use any leaps or jumps or any type of abilities that allow them to run away. But let's move on to his 2. Let's talk about Ares 2 that gives him a ton of buffs. When you use it, it buffs you and your allies, giving you protections, HP 5, CC reduction up to 30%, which is pretty crazy. And on top of all of that, if you chain people and shackle them with your 1, if you use your 2, you get a boost up to 21 extra protections. That's magical and physical for you and your allies for the next 8 seconds, which is pretty nice when you're playing Ares. So let's move on to his 3. Ares 3 is a cone attack that turns himself into a actual flamethrower, which is kind of ridiculous. Not only does it do tick damage, it also does up to 3% of the maximum HP of your enemy, which is pretty crazy. So the more tankier they are, the more it hurts them, which is really nice. And it's a really good way to just shred people's HP. A good combo you could do is your 1, 2, and then 3, and you kind of just chase people down with the speed boost of your 1 while burning them alive with your 3. You'll be doing insane amount of damage. But let's go ahead and move on to his ultimate. Ares' ultimate is where he shoots these chains at people and then can pull them to his location, stunning them for 1 second. If performed correctly, you could line up an entire enemy team just getting annihilated by your team's ultimates. Like a Kukulkan ult with an Ares ult is a great combination, but most of the time your ultimate will just be a good way to get people's beads out of them, or depending on who you're playing against, you might get the enemy team's ultimates as well. But let's go ahead and move on to leveling. First thing I like to level when I'm playing Ares is his 1, his 3, and then his 1 again. When you hit level 4, you could put a point into your 2 if that's what you want to do. But of course, max out your ultimate when you get the chance. The first ability you want to max out when you are playing Ares is his 1, and then his 3, and lastly his 2 whenever you feel like getting it. But let's go ahead and move on to the build portion of the video. Before we get into the build portion of the video, if you guys like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's go ahead and get into it. Starting with starter items, I like getting Sentinel's Gift and getting the blue one, Sentinel's Embrace. Now, you could get Tainted Steel for anti-heal, or War Flag if you want to be a little crazy. War Flag is good. I like getting Gauntlet of Thieves. It gives you 250 health, 15 HP 5, and when you fully stack it, it gives you 50, yes, 50 of each protections, physical and magical, which is awesome. And it gives your allies some protections as well, just for being around you, which is really good. Moving on to the next item, Emperor's Armor, which gives you 300 health, 60 physical protections, and an awesome passive that increases your structures like towers, phoenixes, and maybe titans. Don't quote me on that one, I'm not too sure. It increases their attack speed by 50%. So this is great for dealing with people who like diving towers, and it actually slows enemies' towers and phoenixes and maybe titans by 30%, which is really good, their attack speed. So this is great for diving and being defensive and protecting your tower. This is just great. Moving on to Witchblade. Witchblade gives you 30 physical protections, 250 health, 10% cooldown reduction, and 7% movement speed. The aura effect is where it's at though. Enemies within a 55 units have their attack speed reduced by 25%. This is great for dealing with hunters. It's just an all-around pretty good item. And let's go ahead and move on to Mystical Mail. Mystical Mail is an awesome item in my opinion. It's one of my favorites. As you can see, it gives you this damaging aura that damages enemies around you for just being present, which is nice. It gives you 200 health, 35 physical protection, and 20% crowd control reduction. And of course, the passive damages enemies around you based off your level. It scales up. Next item I like to get is Pestilence most of the time. you will have someone on the enemy team healing. So Pestilence is anti-heal. It reduces enemies' healing by 25%, but it doesn't stack with similar aura effects. So you can't have Contagion and Pestilence work at the same time. That's not how that works. But anyway, it gives you 80 magical protections and 250 health. This is pretty much the build. Other recommended items, if you want to go crazy, Pythagoras piece is pretty cool. It gives your allies and you magical lifesteal, and on top of that gives you some cooldowns and some lifesteal. It's a pretty fun item. Jade Emperor's Crown is pretty good. It lowers the physical power by 15% of all the enemies around you. It's a pretty nice item to have. Heartward Amulet is good if there's no one that you need Pestilence for. You could swap out that there. And, you know, Voidstone's always just an awesome item, giving you 200 health, 40 magical power, 50 magical protections, and it lowers enemies' magical protections by 10%. So you could have this with like an awesome Nox or any awesome mage that is just doing some wild damage. This is great for supporting them. Now moving on to relics. The relics I like to get on Ares are Blink when I do play Ares, because you could Blink ult and you could catch the enemy team off guard with this Blink because they don't expect you to just show up and teleport onto them. Now, other items I could recommend are like Shell. Shell was always a good item. You know, Horrific Emblem. I would go Shell because, you know, helping the boys out goes a long way. But if you guys like this type of content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys later.